Hello and welcome to HomeTech. HomeTech is a podcast dedicated to discovering and exploring new and old technologies for the home. We discuss news about the Internet of Things, home automation, and more. I'm Seth Johnson in Florida, and I'm joined by Jason Griffin in Los Angeles. This is episode 4, which is a very special episode in which we interview Ted Rosenberger of VoicePod. Welcome to HomeTech. I'm joined by Jason Griffin. Jason, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you doing, Seth?
Doing well. And today we're also joined by Ted Rosenberger of VoicePod. And Ted, can you hear us? You're on the line?
I hear you just fine, and thanks for having me today.
Oh, thanks so much for joining us. We really like to talk with people that are making the new, more innovative products on the market, and VoicePod is definitely one of those pieces. Well,
thanks a lot for having me. It's been a 4-year venture now to bring this product line to market, and we've done a lot of interesting R&D along the way, and we have some really interesting things that we found out about automation in general, and we certainly feel like we have an eye on the future of where automation may be headed. So love to show you and talk about a lot of what we've been up to for the last 4 years.
Yeah, and I think it'd be interesting to touch on the fact that you guys really do have a hands-on sort of ground level view of what's going on in the home automation market and what products are really needed out there, because you actually have a background in the installation. Do you want to talk about that for just a brief moment?
Sure. Well, I've been in high tech my whole life. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in computer science, and my last company was focused on mobile software for pharmaceutical sales force automation, of all things.
Oh, wow.
And that company did very well, and I actually sold that company back in 2005 to a French public company, and I stayed on as their CEO of North America for about 3 years. And then I decided to move on and do other things. And I built a large house in Pennsylvania, sort of in celebration of the acquisition of my previous company. And being the high-tech guy that I was, I wanted to install all the latest automated lights, thermostats, and AV systems, for the house of a high-tech guy. And so that's where I came to have an understanding of home automation. I participated actively in the project, working with a local dealer, and I liked it so much that I said, I want to start a company that installs these types of systems for local homeowners. And, maybe we'll generate some ideas for some interesting products, and that might be my next big venture. So that's kind of how it all started. So I founded House Logix, a company called House Logix, back in 2008 with a colleague of mine from my prior company. His name is Chris Allen. And we started installing systems for a variety of customers around our area. And we quickly centered in on the Control4 system. I really liked what Control4's message was at the time. It was a system that was still dealer installed, but it would support a wide range of hardware that you could kind of connect to a central brain, and it was relatively easy to install. Of course, the housing crisis had begun at that time, so there wasn't a lot of new construction going on, and Control4 was particularly strong at retrofits with the Control4 was particularly strong with retrofits because of its heavy use of wireless technology.
Right.
So we were attracted to Control4, and we really quickly became Control4 experts, and put several hundred systems into various homes around eastern Pennsylvania, where our company is based.
Right. And I think I heard VoicePod in the background there trying to lend you a hand.
Yeah, that's what's called a false positive. It's listening all the time. Right. But we'll get into that.
He's just trying to be helpful.
That's right.
What I'm wondering is what made you decide to develop a product like VoicePod? Coming from, you basically were an end user who participated in a project and then became a CEDIA dealer, and now you moved into being a manufacturer of a product. What made you center around voice control for home automation? What was that? What was the key event that brought you to this?
Well, I'm what I would call a serial entrepreneur. So, I really started House Logics with the idea of having a reputable local service business, but also as an idea generation mechanism. And that plan worked out well with VoicePod and a few other initiatives that been involved with. But VoicePod has certainly been the big idea that's come out of the last 4 years of my work. And the history of it is as follows. In our many dabblings in home automation, we started working with a local rehab hospital. It was called Good Shepherd. It's a company in Allentown, very reputable rehab hospital in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And Good Shepherd was looking for less expensive solutions that would allow their patients to control their environments so that they could live independently a little more easily. And so we started working with Good Shepherd, speccing out systems that could go into the homes of disabled patients. And so we, and Control 4 being more of a consumer grade product was actually a lot less expensive than some of the proprietary systems that served the rehab industry in the past. So through many of our conversations with them, the topic kept coming up about alternative user interfaces because a lot of disabled patients are simply unable to use a traditional user interface. So they might not be able to press traditional buttons, or navigate an on-screen interface like most of home automation supplies. So the topic of voice control kept coming up, and there were some rather proprietary, crude solutions that were available serving the disability market exclusively. But we started, getting them asking about, well, is there a way to have voice alone control a Control 4 system? And I did a little bit of research and quickly found that there was really nothing out there that would plug into a standard home automation system and allow you to control that system hands-free. So one of the clever engineers that we employed at the time, who dabbles in hardware literally with hobby kits at night, we discussed this issue, and we got him to go home and actually buy a small chip from a company called Sensory that did embedded speech recognition. And then we combined that with a Zigbee chip, which is a special type of wireless chip that is capable of communicating with systems like Control 4. And we literally wired this up in a hobby board and added a speaker and a mic to it. And then we kind of manually programmed in a few voice commands. And as soon as we got it working in a very crude manner, I took it to my house and connected it to my own Control 4 system. And the second I was able to lay in bed and wake it up and say, turn on the lights, and the lights came on, and I said, open the shades, and the shades would open, I was completely enthralled by it. It was just so cool to be able to control your environment hands-free. And a light bulb went off in my head, and I said, not only is this a home run for the disabled, but it's a little bit of a vision into the future of what home automation could ultimately become. So I decided to invest a lot of my own time and money into this product, and that's how the idea came for VoicePod. And we became a product manufacturer, and we've been working on it ever since.
That's a really, that's a really cool story, because I think that a lot of times, as Seth and I are both home automation professionals, and we deal with new products all the time, and a lot of times we get the feeling that manufacturers are maybe developing technologies that they think are cool or they think are useful, but really we don't feel that need. Whereas I feel like this product was actually born out of a boots on the ground level of experience with home automation, and targeted at solving a real problem in terms of helping people with disabilities interact with all of this cool technology. And, once that technology kind of took its initial form and you were able to test it, you realized that that there's a bigger application for this, and that it doesn't just help disabled people, but it can be applied to some really cool, features that we right now think of as futuristic, but Seth and I are always talking. The future is here. All this stuff we can do it. It just takes a little bit of work. So I think that's a great story, and I love the background.
Well, thank you. Yeah, obviously I've been living with this technology personally. My house is one of the more sophisticated VoicePod installations in the world, and one of the things that I've learned is that there are dozens of times every day in all of our lives where we need to have some level of control of our home, but a button or a remote or a screen isn't right there and handy. So if you are able to just wake up your house by saying a key phrase and then tell it what to do, it kind of smooths out your interaction with your home in many, many different situations throughout a day. One particular place where I would never be without a VoicePod now is in the bedroom, because you crawl into bed and oftentimes you're not sleeping with your phone, and you're not you don't have a remote handy, but you might be too warm or too cold and you want to adjust the temperature. You might want to close the shades. You might want to play some music, and you might want to secure the house at night. And all these things, it's just awfully handy to be able to do hands-free in bed without reaching for anything.
Most definitely.
Or trying to see, find things in the dark if the lights are already out.
Right.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
So, Ted, let's take a step back a little bit. And how would you describe VoicePod to someone who really isn't familiar with home automation products, or what exactly is VoicePod?
Well, VoicePod has evolved into a number of related products. What I've been talking about so far is a little tabletop device that you can place in a room, and it's got a built-in speaker and mic, so it can both listen for commands and it can speak with you. And it's monitoring all the noise that's happening in that room at all times, and it's always ready to respond. And so you wake it up with a special wake-up phrase, give it a command, and then it sends a signal to the control system in your house to tell it what you said, so that the control system can then implement your request. So let me give you a quick. I have a VoicePod sitting right in front.
Oh, I'd love to hear that. That'd be great.
Sure. So I'm in the room and everybody wants to turn on the lights. So imagine yourself laying in bed with your hands behind your head, and you can just say, "Hello, VoicePod.
How may I help you?
Turn on lights."
Turn on lights.
And my lights just went on. Now, if I'm
That is so cool.
Thanks. If I would like to lower the temperature, okay, I could just say, "Hello, VoicePod.
How may I help you?
Lower temperature."
Lower temperature.
Now I'll get feedback.
The cooling set point is now 70.
Okay, so I just turned down the temperature, and then the VoicePod communicated with the house and got the new cooling set point. You have to think about things like you don't have a screen, so you don't know what the temperature is now. So it's important that the device, speak back what the new temperature is.
Yeah, definitely.
That's absolutely amazing. That's what we're looking at for everybody is, the Siri software that's out there that Apple has, and Google Glass, where you say, "Okay, Glass." You actually have this right now as a product in your house working.
And it works really, really well. Now, if you notice, the response is instant, too, unlike Siri and all of those that are using cloud-based technology to figure out what you said. This is instant. So this little device that we've invented here does the voice recognition right inside it. And the only thing that's really communicated out of this is the end result. So if you say good night or turn the lights on, the only signal that's sent to the house is the end result. Okay, do the good night scene or turn the lights on. But everything is done inside our device. Now, our device, in terms of the capabilities of what you can do, on Google's servers versus our little device, there's no comparison. So what we do is we have the device just listening for a small number of commands, and they're very, they have to be spoken pretty precisely, but if you limit what the little pod is actually listening for, then the accuracy is excellent because it doesn't have a big job to do. It's only looking for the 15, 20, 25 things that you've activated in that room. It's not got the whole English language to try to sort through like Siri does. And that's one of the ways that we really combat accuracy. But this little device does not rely on the internet at all. Everything's done inside it. And, our vision when we invented this was that you would just place these things around the house, maybe one in each room or even more than one in each room, and then it's sitting there ready to go, ready to serve your simple requests at any time. But the technology that we have inside this thing is more analogous to what's in your car than what's on your phone, using Siri, where you have the power of the cloud.
Right. And now we're still basically focused right now on sort of the table. Would you guys call it the tabletop version or?
Yes. Yeah, that's our tabletop hardware product.
So the tabletop hardware product, but you mentioned that this has actually been kind of divided into multiple different products.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. What happened was that, after we got this hardware product out, or actually before it was done, my business partner from a prior venture had the privilege of a preview of this thing, and he got so excited that he decided to invest some money in the venture and join in with some of his talents. And he has a lot of skills in the mobile area, so he assembled a small team of people that would attempt to do what we've done with the hardware VoicePod, but make it available on a mobile phone. Uh-huh. And he's an iPhone guy, so and most of the high-end home automation industry, is sort of iOS oriented. Although that's changing. That's changing in the last year for sure. Android has made huge inroads into the high end. But we decided to focus on an iOS product first, and then ultimately on an Android version of the VoicePod. Now, a mobile phone is a very different device than some dedicated piece of hardware, and it's not always on, and it's just it's a Wi-Fi device, and it's used for other things. So it's not. It's just a very different type of product, what our app version does. However, our app version does use the power of the cloud. We're actually using Google's speech engine, and you speak a command into your phone, and we send it off to Google, and then Google will give us, let's say, 5 to 10 guesses as to what it thinks you might have said, and then we sort through all of Google's guesses, and we know what is available in each room, what's been installed in each room of a particular house. And then all of the guesses that Google has, we kind of score all the words that come back from Google and try to make a sensible, intelligent choice and do something sensible in that room. So
and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but is all of that sorting, so Google is giving you back this information and it's guessing kind of what you said, and then there's logic that obviously has to parse through that and figure out, okay, is he trying to turn the lights on? Is he trying to lower the shades? Where is that logic taking place?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So we have our own cloud-based technology that we developed, and it takes the results from Google, but it has a database that is aware of the name of each room in each client's house, as well as the speech commands that have been enabled for that room. And so its job is to sort of look at everything that comes back from Google for a given command and come up with a sensible decision as to what the person probably means. And if there's ambiguity, then it will tell the mobile device, well, it might be this or this, and then the mobile device will come back and ask the user what they meant, kind of like Siri. But 90% of the time, there's an overwhelming highest priority guess that we come up with, and it's usually the right thing to do. I could demo it here real quickly on my phone if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So, one of the great benefits of Siri, and the reason that people use Siri, is for things that it would be slower to do by, navigating around the device. So a great example of a good use of Siri would be if you want to navigate to a particular address. You can speak that, and it's a lot faster than, trying to type that address in to your mapping program and press search and do it that way. So an example, TV channels. What's a TV channel that you guys watch a lot?
ESPN.
ESPN. Okay, we'll go with ESPN. So let's say we would like to watch ESPN in the kitchen in my house here. So I can just tap a little button in the app, and hopefully you can hear it here. I would like to watch ESPN in the kitchen, please.
TV channel change to ESPN. The active room is now kitchen.
Okay, so, yeah. So, and that was faster. You don't know what network I have here. And so you wouldn't know what channel, how to find ESPN or turn it on in my kitchen, but you could speak that command into a phone. And if you notice, I said please and spoke to it very politely, just like Siri.
Yes.
The reason I can get away with that would not work on our tabletop product, because our tabletop product is looking for exact commands. But because we're using the power of the cloud and Google, it's actually helpful to speak longer sentences, because it gives Google's engine a chance to put what you're saying in context. So I used the word watch and kitchen, so that actually helped Google figure out what I was trying to say, even if maybe part of the recording that Google got wasn't all that clear. So that's kind of the power of the cloud. Now the one limitation with the phone version is, phones and tablets, their microphones are designed to work with the user very, very close phone. And it's one of the reasons you can make a phone call in a bar or in a noisy place and have the person on the other end actually hear you, because there's a lot of noise canceling microphone technology built into phones, and so phones are really good at getting the user's voice and filtering out the rest. But it's that same technology that would cause the phone version of the VoicePod not to work from 20 feet away across the room. Our tabletop product actually will work from 20, 30 feet away in a quiet room.
Well, yeah, that's really, and it was very natural speech that you gave there to the app. It wasn't something that was robotic. Like you can speak to the app just like you would speak to a person standing in the room. Please change the channel in the kitchen to ESPN. That's amazing. How many commands? I guess how many commands can be selected, and can the end user change them, or?
Well, we have spent 4 years now. I swear a large part of the effort of the overall VoicePod.
May I help you?
Oh, there she goes.
Yes.
Of the overall effort has been in the area of coming up with keywords that people say naturally when they want something to happen. So, turn on the lights is a common phrase that we all say. But, if you wanted to tell your house to make the temperature lower, what we found is that there's, 3, 4, 5 ways that people would commonly say that if they were talking to their house. They might say to lower the temperature. They might say lower the thermostat. They might say make it colder in here, etc. So what we've done is a massive study over the last 4 years of just, figuring out what words people use to say things, and then we call those keywords. And our app version, has a huge database where where we map and score words and try to translate those into actions within a room in a house.
So having those key words greatly increases the accuracy of either both, I guess, both the hardware tabletop and the app.
Well, the tabletop version, again, it's all being done with embedded technology, and unfortunately, we just for a cost-effective little module that's in a room, we just can't allow that level of flexibility. So the tabletop product is just looking for simple commands like good night, good morning, raise temperature, lower temperature, with a little bit of flexibility, but you really have to memorize what commands it recognizes with the tabletop product. With the app version, because it's all cloud-based, and we first, are getting Google to translate to text everything that you said, and then we work with the text afterwards. That allows, almost a Siri-like experience with what we're doing. And in that version, you literally can type commands right into the app. They get synced up to the cloud, and then you've essentially can use your own words, the words you use every day in your own house to customize the system. So, I have a mode in my personal jacuzzi that makes really big bubbles. So I have a command that I say, put the big bubbles on, and big and bubbles are the words that I set up. And now I can just say, put the big bubbles on, and that'll start the big bubbles in the jacuzzi.
Yeah, so that's what I'm a little bit curious about is how flexible as an end user. Is there sort of a list that I get once this system is installed in my house where it says, okay, these are the commands that you can choose from, and then the programmer sort of has to go through and activate those? Because I know you said you try to limit it to as a way of making the device more efficient and of sort of getting around some of the accuracy concerns. So yeah. It sounds like it's sort of dictated by what's available in the room, which makes perfect sense. How is that sort of as an end user? What's my experience when the dealer comes and installs this in my house and they're training me on how to use it? I guess that's kind of where I'm still a little bit curious.
Remember, we have two very different products. There's the tabletop version, which is the always listening little module that you place in a room where you want hands-free control. And then you have this app version where you have to have your phone in your hand or fairly close to you in order for it to work. So in both cases, they both come with a large, call it a vocabulary, a large set of generic commands like turn on lights, and good night, good morning, raise temperature, lower temperature, open shade, close shade, that kind of thing, all pre-installed. And whoever sets it up, their job is to simply connect it to the system, and then decide in each room, well, what does that command mean? So, for example, if you say make the lights bright, well, in the kitchen, that might mean to turn the under-counter lights on and some overhead lights on at 75%. In the bedroom, that might mean to turn some lamps on. So it's really, we can't make the decision what the word bright ultimately does in a room. All we can do is provide an app and a device that recognizes that and tells the control system, hey, the person wants it bright in here. So that's up to the installer to work with the homeowner to go through.
That makes perfect sense. So basically either the app or the tabletop version is recognizing the speech, and then it's sending the corresponding command to the home automation system where the actual decisions are being made. Okay, he wants the room bright, and then inside of the home automation system, the logic is built to mean, okay, bring the cans up to 80% and bring the sconces up to 100 or whatnot. So
exactly, or open the shades if that might mean, what bright might mean in a room with a lot of windows during the day.
Great.
How does VoicePod handle different languages, or does it handle different
Yes,
languages at this time?
excellent question. Well, our tabletop product currently supports English and Spanish, and at the ISE conference in Amsterdam just a few weeks ago, we announced that our app versions now support Italian, Spanish, and French, as well as English. And for English, we support the UK dialects as well as the Australian English dialect. The cloud, again, makes it much easier for us to support a huge range of languages. It's a lot more effort for us to build support for multiple languages into our little tabletop product. So English and Spanish is what we support right now with that product.
We've talked, I think, a good deal about the basics and how it works and what the advantages are of using it. I noticed that it seems to be primarily a Control 4 product right now. Are there plans, or does the ability currently exist, and I think it does, to tie this into other home automation systems? I guess we'll start by talking about some of the other professionally installed systems like Crestron, Elan, or Savant.
Yes, good question. Well, the reason that we focused in on Control 4 initially was there were several reasons. First of all, Control 4 is exceptionally good at providing tools to manufacturers to allow their systems to be made compatible with the Control 4 ecosystem, really without the help of Control 4. They provide a tool called DriverWorks, and it allows you to build your own drivers and basically make your device Control 4 compatible. And we had particular expertise in Control 4, so that's one of the reasons we chose to focus on it first. Also, Control 4 is, selling a lot of systems, so we felt we could sell more initially if we were going to focus on one thing early on. However, for both our tabletop product and for our mobile product, we publish a technical document called an integration protocol that would allow any qualified installer with the right tools to take the signals that are coming out of our tools and have them affect any system. And you mentioned Crestron. We've had a bunch of clever Crestron dealers do integration work with both our tabletop product and the app version of our product. Crestron is a more complex product to do implementations with. It tends to go into very, very high-end homes and also a lot of commercial applications. So the sophistication of the average Crestron dealer is actually quite high. And, part of how you build Crestron systems is essentially you're writing a custom driver every time you do something in Crestron. So the Crestron folks have been easily able to work with our tools. And we've had conversations with quite a few of the others. And there are some initiatives that I can't really talk about right now, but with some of the other manufacturers to, make our stuff compatible with theirs.
Fair enough.
Are there any plans to bring this outside of the CEDIA market and move it kind of into more of a, I know there's probably more costs associated with that on your end, such as, support is going to go way up if you're selling to a mass market.
Yeah.
But are there any plans in the future to hopefully get, VoicePod into every home?
It would be my dream to have, who wouldn't want to get into bed at night and just say goodnight to their house and have the garage doors close and the temperatures turn down and the lights go off and the security system arm. Who would not want that? The problem is that the DIY tools that are out there just aren't there yet in terms of supporting and what I call scenes, what I think the industry calls scenes, and that's that in response to one button being pressed, that a whole bunch of things happen in the house. And if you think about what VoicePod, for the most part, really is it's a way to push buttons in your house without physically touching them. You're pushing buttons by speaking. And most of these DIY systems, quite shockingly to me when I looked into them, they don't have the most basic of keypads that they support yet. You can't even buy buttons for a lot of them.
Right. When you're talking about lighting control, you're just simply seeing a dimmer or a dimming module that you plug in and plug a lamp into, versus what you have on the professional integrator side, where you have a keypad when you enter the house with 6 or 10 buttons on it, and when you press one of those buttons, it executes a lighting scene, or can go all the way up to turning on TVs.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the higher end systems, have what are called keypads, physical keypads that can be installed in the wall, or wireless ones that could be placed by your bed, and you could have like a button labeled "Good Night" or "Raise Temperature" or turn the TV, watch TV, and any of the disparate systems connected to the controller could be controlled by those buttons. Where a lot of the DIY systems, they're just not doing keypads yet, and so if they're not supporting the infrastructure to have a button do a bunch of things, a physical button do a bunch of things, then they're not quite ready for voice to press buttons, because they don't even have the physical buttons yet. But it's definitely coming, and
oh yeah,
yeah, and we couldn't be more excited about when it does come. The one other thing that I think is a little bit of it's inhibiting us with the DIY systems right now is they still are very closed. And if you think about it, like the big bubbles example that I mentioned earlier, if I wanted a voice command where I just say put the big bubbles on in my spa, and I want to be able to set that up as a homeowner, I've got to be able to have the control system have a place that I can go in and define something called big bubbles and actually interface with my spa and do that. And a lot of these tools, they're just very simplistic right now, where the end user isn't given all the tools they need to really connect the dots from source to destination straight through the system. And I know a lot of the big players in the world, the Ciscos of the world, are starting to dream, with the Internet of Things, about sort of standardized ways that all things can talk to all other things. And I think VoicePod, we're monitoring this closely. And as soon as more standards emerge for, basically creating scenes in the cloud, creating multiple actions in response to one event, once that becomes generalized, then I think what we're doing is going to be a mass market technology.
Absolutely. And I mean, Ted, you and I have talked a little bit in the past on development. I've done some development too, and yeah, I've been looking into some of the DIYs before we started this podcast, but also in conjunction with the podcast, and seeing what kind of products I could introduce and integrate with them. And yeah, they all have some kind of API out there, but like you said, it's either in its infancy, and just not quite ready for this type of integration, this level of integration or sophistication, yeah. or they're just not open. Even though they say that they're APIs, they're not complete APIs where you have the ability to do whatever it is that you want through an API, and it's kind of holding them back. And I think as the industry matures, as these guys start maturing, you're going to see that. Right now, I think they're just picking off the low-hanging fruit. Like you're seeing a million guys do door contacts and integrations with smoke alarms and thermostats these days, but no one's really digging down deep and tackling home automation for AV or house audio, outside of independent products like Sonos. But yeah, as soon as that happens, as soon as that switch gets flipped, and Control 4 is there today, Crestron is there today, but they are sold through the dealer network. As soon as that switch gets flipped on the do-it-yourself side, this market is just going to break loose, and I think you're well poised to have your product sit on top of these things.
Well, thank you. Yes, you're absolutely right. Everything is very security oriented right now, and it seems like all the DIY systems avoid AV like the plague. And
Yeah.
There's a good reason.
Yeah, exactly.
It's difficult.
For our technology to work smoothly, I'm not sure that somebody would buy a VoicePod just to control their thermostat or just to control their lights. It's really when you have, integrated houses, hundreds of thousands of integrated homes existing in the world, and, where people, a large number of homes, have automated lights, thermostats, shades, door locks, security systems, and AV systems. Now, all of a sudden, scenes make sense. So, now you've got a lot of things you want to do when you go to bed at night that you can do. And so that's where voice becomes more powerful than, just focusing in on, a couple of lamps, but not everything in the house, or, one door lock. It's just tough to justify voice control over just one thing.
So I know that you guys don't publish, or I haven't seen published a price on your website. Is there any ballpark out there that you've seen these being installed for? I know it just probably depends on the region, the dealer, and the programming costs on that.
Well, we actually, I can talk about pricing a little bit here today. I mean, our pod retails for $649. That's what end customers would get it for, and we usually recommend for each room budgeting at least 2 to 4 hours of labor for the dealer to connect the pod to the system, and then program a couple dozen events. Events being things like good morning, good night, turn the lights on, lights bright, lower temperature. So just going through kind of a checklist or a cheat sheet of common commands that the customer may want in that room, and then doing the work necessary to make the control system actually respond when those commands are recognized. So I would say high level, I'd say $1,000 per room right now for completely hands-free voice control. Now, personally, that's much more expensive than I'd like it to be. The problem is that, we're not selling tens of thousands of these things right now. So, our manufacturing costs are quite high. We would go out of business if we sold the product for much less. My vision is to have the VoicePod technology become as inexpensive as a dimmer switch in the future. So, maybe $100 to $150 to essentially enable hands-free voice control in that room. And I actually have a U.S. patent on one facet of making that happen once this becomes a large-scale undertaking. My patent has to do with having more than one voice pod listening to a room. And basically, if you put more than one in a room, they're both listening. And it's often that more than one might hear you say the "Hello VoicePod" wake-up phrase, and what they do is they quickly wirelessly coordinate with each other and figure out which one you're closest to, and that's the one that wakes up and talks to you. And the other one, even though it heard you, it goes back to sleep automatically. So I actually have a patent on that aspect of the VoicePod technology.
That's very smart. You don't want a house full of voice pods yelling at you.
That's exactly right. Even adjacent rooms, the microphones are so sensitive that if you're standing at the threshold of a room, both will hear you. So it's important that only the one closest to you or the one that you're sort of facing. I find myself, I talk to a voice pod just like a person. When you interact with a person, you'll tend to turn your head towards them.
Right.
And it's hard not to. If you know where the voice pod is in a room, you find yourself turning towards that to speak to it. But that's actually helpful because then that one gets a stronger microphone signal from your voice, and that one will tend to be the one that wakes up rather than one that might be behind you or in an adjacent room, because you turn towards it and project your voice at that one. So.
Well, that makes sense. Even with I have my Control 4 remote at home, obviously to control my family room setup, I don't require line of sight, but I still find myself pointing the remote towards the TV. I think it's a very natural human instinct to do that. So I would imagine the same thing applies to voice control.
So this technology is pretty amazing. It seems to bring the realm of science fiction into reality, and it's here today. It's not something that we're talking about that's going to be released mid next year in June or July, in 2015. It's here right now, and this is something that people can do in their homes, or I mean, even like we started off talking about the disabled, this has got to be huge for them. But what do you think? What is the future of VoicePod? What's the next big step?
Well, we're at an interesting juncture at this point, in that we have a really nice solution that works extremely well, but it's still at arm's length from the control systems. It's essentially still a button pusher. So one thing that I could see is tighter integration with various control systems, or maybe one lucky control system that might end up doing an exclusive type of arrangement with us. So, that's not out of the realm of possibility that we would just merge our technology into a major player system to give them a competitive advantage. So that's one possibility. But when you do deeper integration, then more can happen with less work up front. I'll give you an example. If a control system, when by virtue of just installing it, had automatic events built into it, like lower temperature, raise temperature, lock the door, unlock the door, good night, good morning, turn on the lights, then we could connect a VoicePod to that system and have all those events just already be there. So there's nothing to do. There's nothing to really set up, that the control system kind of would already support VoicePod out of the box. Then, some nice DIY tools to let the user sort of adjust the response to the voice commands over time, but that there'd be a default response to just about everything right from the start. Then, it would be cheaper to install, and, more could happen. But that's going to involve us working directly with some of the control system manufacturers to tightly integrate what we're doing with what they're doing in the product. So I could see that happening. The other thing that I think is probably going to happen is, the cloud is here to stay. And, the Android version of our VoicePod app, we're just amazed with the performance of Google's speech engine done through an Android phone. Google actually streams your voice while you're speaking, so that while you're speaking a command, what you're saying is already being streamed to Google before you even finish. Wow. So by the time you finish speaking, Google's already figured out what you said, and the response time goes down to something like a quarter of a second. So it's almost like our VoicePod that's doing it right there inside the little box, but it's being done on the cloud. So, and it's full natural language. So I think that, ultimately, our current product does take a user with enough patience to learn the commands that it recognizes. And just like car systems can be a little bit frustrating for some people if they're just trying to talk to it like Siri and they don't really look at the manual and see what it's even trying to recognize, our system can be frustrating right now for people that don't take the time to learn the commands. Where Siri at least gets by being, allowing people to speak naturally, and it tries its best to figure out what you wanted. So where I see us headed is maybe combining the benefits of a little tabletop device that's always listening with our cloud-based technology that lets you speak naturally to the product. The biggest inhibition to that is, of course, background noise, because even Google, and we've done a lot of tests with remote microphones in rooms, trying to speak from 20 feet away to Google. And even Google, with all its power, if you don't send Google a high quality recording of a voice, it really isn't able to figure out what you said. So, all these cloud-based speech engines are reliant on, a high quality recording getting up to the cloud. And, mobile phones with their noise canceling attributes are able to do that when the phone is just a few feet away from you. But, for far field recognition, like our tabletop device does, the current state of the art is to really just, be looking for a small number of small, simple commands. And that can be done from far away quite effectively. So I see those, as microphone technology improves and the cloud, the power of the cloud improves, I think we'll get some convergence and maybe be able to recognize full natural language speech commands from far away. And that would be the ideal product. So we're looking for ways to pull that off as soon as possible.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So Ted, where's a good place that people could go to find out all about VoicePod?
Well, www.voicepod.com is our website. And on our website, we have a lot of written information, but more importantly, there are multiple videos on there showing everything from the lifestyle that you can lead with VoicePod technology throughout your house to some videos of me doing some demos of the product. And there's also technical installation videos for dealers that are interested in how our product works at a technical level. So go to voicepod.com and get lots of information. And we're also on Twitter and Facebook and all under VoicePod.
We will link all that for you in the show notes. And Ted, I want to express my sincere thanks for joining us here on HomeTech. I know Jason appreciates it as well.
Yeah, Ted, thank you so much. It was very interesting to hear more about the product from you, and we really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Well, I'm having a blast with this product, so always enjoy talking about it. And congratulations to you guys. You're doing a great service for a lot of people by doing this podcast.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ted. Jason, where can people find you out there in the Internet of Things?
Yeah, I think Twitter is probably the best bet, at Jason Griffing, Griffing.
Excellent. I'm Seth Johnson, at Seth P. Johnson. And you can also, if you have any notes that you want to leave for us, we have a feedback form now on the website at HomeTech.fm. You can leave any questions that you have for us or any feedback you'd like to give, and we would certainly like to hear back from you. Thanks for listening.